Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, let's talk about who offers the better investment value for your account. Is it Qingyi or Jane? One is an electric stun unit, one is a physical anomaly unit. They are both very different in different categories, but the objective of this video is to help you decide which is better for your specific account, because every account is different. Now, I don't want to waste any time, as we always do on this channel. I always like to start first things first off with current value. Why is this very important? Is because you want to know exactly what benefits you're getting from pulling these characters right now. Instead of, if they are better in future, maybe they are scale with time, might as well just pull them on a rerun, save your gems for someone more important. Maybe you're waiting for a character like Miyabi or something like that. You want to know exactly what they give you. Now, first things first, we need to understand a little bit of what they do, not too much, just a little bit overview of what these two characters are in order to determine their true value, right? So let's start things first off from left to right, which is Qingyi. Qingyi is an electric stun unit in a similar category to characters like Anbi Demara, Lycan, as well as Colada. She does decent amount of electric application, decent AoE, very fun playstyle as well. I've already tried her out. I'll be putting out a video shortly out as well once I get my editing done on those. But overall, she's a very, very unique playstyle, very fun. I think she could probably be one of the best in class stun characters, but we'll talk about it, of course, on another day. For Jane, on the other hand, she is a mix of playstyle between feels like a playstyle of like Nekomata, yet with the utility and the anomaly-based scaling of a character perhaps like Piper. A very interesting mix because Hoyoverse might be going down a different angle where attack might not be the only way to play the game. For DPS, Anomaly might be a pseudo DPS class as well, which means you have two offensive classes, one anomaly, one attack, but we'll see whether this forms a trend. That is my initial impressions. Now, with all these like better investment videos, I promise you I will be logical when I make the comparisons between both of them. No bias. If you want my biased thoughts, I'll leave it all the way at the end. For any of you who care about a second opinion, you want to bounce an idea off of me, we can see how that goes too. So first things first, current value. In this state of the game in 1.0, a lot of us probably, if you're not a massive whale or super lucky, you might not have two main DPSs right now, like Ellen as well as Zhu Yuan. Perhaps you're making do with a character like Corin, you're making do with a character, for example, like Anton and stuff. This does shape the way your accounts are being built and the way we are thinking about it. So let's start things off like systematically. Let's talk about the left one first, Qingyi. If you wish that you had a character, another Lycan, you wish, oh, I only have one Lycan, if only I could play him on both sides. Anbi Demara is nice, but she scales more with like damage in her overall kit. She doesn't really scale too much with stun. I find that her stun is lacking. She takes up too much field time. I don't have Colada as well, or I feel that Colada is too slow. Her combo strings takes up too much time. This is when I think a character like Qingyi will offer great value to your overall account. Currently, Lycan, many people consider the best in class stun unit in the game, but I think that things will change once Qingyi comes about. Her combos are very smooth, very, very easy to use, very easy to interrupt and enter again as well. I think that Qingyi is definitely a very interesting mix, especially if you're looking for a stun character to form a traditional like stun DPS kind of team. The natural team compositions that you will play her in will be a team, of course, of Zhu Yuan. If you are looking for a Zhu Yuan Qingyi combo, I think this is likely the people who are like going to be most interested about this particular character in terms of early combos as well. But that's not the only one. You could of course run her with other units that benefit from a stun character. For example, maybe you want to run an Anton. If you have like, for example, Grace inside, you're running an Anton with Qingyi. Qingyi is able to help Anton proc his double electric passive as well, and Anton also helps Qingyi proc her passive. We'll touch that in a later bit as well once we have the videos up on the channel doing a review on Qingyi. I've already tried her myself. Very, very fun character to play. So, other than this, what are my thoughts on a character like Jane Doe on the other hand? So we know the current value of Qingyi and who likely is going to feel like a lot of benefit from her. On the other hand, Jane Doe lies in a very interesting category. I would say that people who are looking for Jane Doe will be one, have played a Piper-like comp or have played a Nekomata-like team composition and like it quite a lot. Fast-paced, good amounts of anomaly, a ton of anomaly damage actually, and you don't mind exploring into a different vibe of the game rather than the traditional crit rate, crit damage. If you like that kind of playstyle, you don't mind Anomaly, you actually find Anomaly quite cool, the amount of scaling, and you are a bit better off at your understanding of complexity of the game. So far, you have a decent learning curve already. I would say that Jane Doe is actually a very attractive character to consider because it's Hoyover's first attempt of a limited character in an Anomaly class, which tells it gives me a signal that they might be going down the Anomaly route in future for more DPS characters. At the same time, Anomaly is interesting because if you don't run Anomaly as your main DPS, you can run them as a secondary DPS to help your whatever your main two elements are proccing. Currently, she's in the unknown faction, of course, which means that she probably doesn't have too many other faction synergies, but likely maybe her passive will scale with if you have one other Anomaly in the team or maybe one other physical character. That is not as clear right now. Things can always change as it goes live, but definitely that's one of the things that limits her in terms of team competition because she doesn't have a faction yet, which is a bit frustrating, but eventually we'll have more characters coming up for her in future too. These are the people that I think will be interested in this character. Will be a person that likes Piper, a person that likes Nekomata. A team of Piper and Jane Doe probably will be able to proc physical very fast, but I think that they are a little bit more competitive rather than synergistic with each other. And that brings me to my second point that I want to talk about, other than current value. And of course, in this category, I think for the majority of people, like 90% of the folks here, probably are going to benefit with Electric Stun character at this early stage of the game, especially if you prefer a simple playstyle, Unga Bunga attack, stun to help you break them, and then you use her overall kit. Stun can also benefit characters that are Anomaly, so I think that Qingyi is a very generalistic character, can fit into a majority of teams. Even if you have all stun characters, I am going to be replacing my stun units and putting a character like Qingyi inside. That's definitely for sure. But in my opinion, Qingyi wins this one hands down. I would say Jane is a little bit more adventurous. For any of you who are a bit more brave, I think that Jane is definitely very interesting. I am excited for what Jane will provide currently in the game too. So, before we go on to future value, I think it's more appropriate to touch on something else in the current state also, which is alternatives. Now, alternatives is important because if you already have like 50 of the same characters, you probably don't need another one urgently right now unless you're like super infatuated with their design, their playstyle. That's, of course, a whole different thing. I'm here to compare logically, and the competition for Jane Doe is quite clear. You have Piper, who is of the physical Anomaly class, as well as Nekomata, who is of a physical DPS. You would argue that maybe the other physical characters will all fall in the same category to some extent, but I think the closest competitor will probably be Jane Doe Piper and Jane Doe Nekomata because of the playstyle similarities. You're likely going to play Jane Doe, especially a little bit more DPS, especially if she has some scaling in the kit where it allows her to have a basic instances of her damage, also be able to create that skills with her kit. That'll be quite interesting to see if the Hoyoverse wants to go down that route. But Piper will be definitely the main competitor to a character like Jane Doe. I don't think there's space in the team for two similar element Anomaly characters because you would likely want to run another element so that you can proc Disorder quickly. For example, like putting Grace in so you can proc like a Grace as well as a Jane Doe kind of team composition. Disorder does a lot of damage on top of it and you can just like rotate between each of one of them. Your last slot can be like a support or a stun character to help you rotate in more quickly as well. I think that Jane Doe has a bit more competition, might be a bit competitive, especially if you play like Nekomata together with Jane Doe. They might complete a bit for fill time, but I do think that Jane Doe might be an upgrade to both of them, especially since one of the my biggest complaint at least for Nekomata is I wish that she was Anomaly class. She attacks so often, so much, that if she was Anomaly, I think she'll have much better scaling. And Piper definitely has done very, very well for the early stage of the game. Having a 5-star now coming in, I think it will be really, really nice to have too. Corrin and BD are just A rank, so they don't scale as well into the late game. So I think that Jane Doe's competition, she likely is going to be best in slot out of all of them. But Piper is a cheaper alternative to Jane Doe. So if you already have Piper super well built, maybe not as urgent, you can afford to wait for reviews of this particular character and even pull her on a rerun. That's my thought if you already have a super well-built Piper. I still be pulling both of them. I'll try and be both of them out. I'll do guides on both of them. But that's my analysis on the alternatives for Jane. For Qingyi, on the other hand, her alternatives is really, I think, the stun characters without a doubt. The question then becomes, how good is she compared to the rest of them? I think if you are running Unbi Tamara, one reason why Unbi is not going to be performing at her best in the later stages of the game is because her scaling is split between damage as well as stun. Especially in the early game when you are looking for characters that scale well, you want their whole kit to be synergized with whatever they're trying to do. Unbi tries to do too much and be like a Swiss Army knife, but really as we approach the later part of the game, you want your stun character to be able to stun very reliably and very quickly as well. I think Qingyi does that and is clearly a better Unbi Damara. Does good amounts of AoE, does good amount of stun, can interrupt her combos as well. I find her super, super fantastic. The main competitor, I think, Collider is a bit slower, fits into, of course, fire teams. They all are, these three here, the S ranks all play to different teams. So I don't think they will replace each other as of yet. But if you will tell me the best and the most useful out of them, I think Qingyi is the best in class moving into version 1.1 in terms of her overall kit as well. One of the reasons, Coletta is very slow. Her combo strings take very long to do. Qingyi allows you to interrupt her combo strings here and there. Again, I have another video, I promise you, it'll be out in a couple of days' time. And Lycan here, of course, is one of the better ones currently in the game. He's very fast, combo strings can be interrupted. But he mainly plays with Ice teams right now with his Ice Rest threat merging with Ellen team composition. So if you have Lycan with Ellen, you can put Qingyi with the other half. And if you are wondering, can Qingyi be played with Ellen? I think so as well. She does. I can't say too much information right now because the videos haven't been officially published on the Qingyi review, but her additional ability is also quite easy to proc. You will see in due time. She can work fine with Ellen. She can work fine with Zhu Yuan as well. I think she's probably one of the better versatile characters right now in the game in terms of alternatives. So comparing both of them, I think, in my opinion, both of them have very, very good alternatives right now. It's very interesting that Hoyoverse decides to introduce a 5-star version of where there's already like an A ranker of this exact kind of element as well as category. It probably means that they are trying to like power creep the A ranks as quickly as possible before they introduce new varieties so they can keep the selling going on for longer. Very unfortunate situation because a lot of us pump resources into the A ranks already. But in my opinion, the alternative between both of these two, I'll give it still to Qingyi. Qingyi's stun is a much better thing to much lower alternatives because you don't have A rank that is competitive to her. Whereas Jane Doe, you have been making do with Piper for quite a while, and it really lies on Jane Doe to show whether she can outperform Piper and kick her off, and you've probably already invested into her like level 40, level 50. So I would say that they are close on this, but I will give it to Qingyi just because of Unbi's differential between a character like Piper and Jane Doe versus like Unbi and Qingyi, but it's roughly close. I would say it's like very, very similar. So at this point, I would like to talk about the future value of both of them. Now this is an interesting part because not only do we want to consider what their value is right now for your account, I also want to know if in 6 months time when they get a rerun, maybe 6 months, maybe 7 months, who knows, if they are better then, maybe it's better to just skip them now and pull them later on. So that's what future value aims to do. We also want to talk about, does your money make its worth in the next 6 months? Does it help you carry your account? Between the two of them, the riskier of the two options is going down the physical anomaly route of Jade. Why do I say that? Will they start to make the Hollow Zero, all of the Shui defense have anomaly-based bonuses? Are they going to start pushing out more anomaly characters that help them outperform? This part is not so clear, whether they are going to have a lot more support for these units. So there is some uncertainty there, but long story short, I think anomaly characters will definitely scale pretty well with time because they can always be boxed out to a secondary DPS role. But stun characters, on the other hand, are a little bit more of a support basis on its own. You can play stun characters into anomaly teams because you are wanting the chain attacks, you want to build up your perfect assist better. You can play stun characters into attack teams, and you can play stun characters even as a sub DPS if you have them well invested enough. They can also do decent amounts of damage. Some people are not even afraid to bring stun characters into the first as the first character into the Hollow Zero because that's how strong characters like Lycan is. They have good amounts of damage, good amounts of utility, fast-paced combos that are not very squishy too, they are relatively tanky. So I see stun characters as one of the hallmarks of a decent tank in the game. Support tank as in like tanking your account in terms of progression. They help carry your account like a cornerstone of your overall account as well. I think that in terms of future value, Qingyi likely will still remain relevant in 6 months from now. Electric stun character, you will definitely find a use for her here and there. The only reason why you might get her power crap in the early days is because they start flooding this category of stun with all the single elements. So you have like all 5 elements inside, and you have all of them like different stun characters. Then maybe her competition is higher, but likely for now, I don't see them replacing electric stun characters until they at least fill up the other elements in the near future. So near future wise, I think Qingyi is very safe. She's probably going to be my pick for the near future. Long-term future, I think the one that is more interesting might be Jane Doe. In the long future time, However, will probably run out of attack characters to sell and they want to go more into anomaly-based characters. In that case, if you are releasing a physical anomaly character, they haven't even released the other elements at all, whereas like in the stun category, you have some other elements. In the long run, they will be likely wanting to push for ice anomaly, for example, electric limited anomaly. They will likely push out aether anomaly, fire anomaly, and stuff like that, which could be very, very interesting to see. And they widen the roster, so disorder even gets more into the game. And when you have more anomaly, they actually work even better because they compound on each other, right? The more ability you have to proc disorder, the more team compositions you have. So in the long-term future, I think Jane Doe is likely going to outperform. But in the near future, in terms of like the next 3 to 6 months, I think Qingyi is going to outperform in future value. Which then comes the next category here, of the potential. Now, potential, instead of looking at the game state, turns and looks at Hoyoverse as a company and what they like to do. We have been covering Genshin Impact from the very early days and Honkai Star Rail now on our main channel for a really long time, and there are certain patterns that Hoyoverse likes to do. So this is the first time, of course, that they decided to go down this route of power creeping, or quote-unquote power creeping the A ranks so fast. But in future, what they like to do is they like to broaden the depth. So they tend to go across the elements, across the different state of characters before they start introducing multiple characters of the same element. And unlike other games, the only option that you have here is really, does that character damage through a traditional crit rate, or whether they are damaging through anomaly-based damage, or perhaps a hybrid of both. So that is the only way, the only variance that you can have. And if Jane is a hybrid already between attack and anomaly, I think that she will likely play very well into future trends that have either a attack crit rate-based buffing or anomaly-based buffing. I do see her play well into both of those trends, and I definitely think it's probably the most interesting of both of them. If you look at these two characters and look at Jane's overall design, overall kit, and find that there is more than meets the eye, I do agree as well. I do think that this character might have more support in future coming out, especially since her faction is currently like unknown, right? No other supportive characters, so it's left to see what Hoyoverse wants to do. So there's a lot of risk here, but I think there's a lot of upside to be gained if you pull a character like Jane early on too. Especially if you're looking for your second limited DPS. Maybe you don't have like Ellen, maybe you don't have Zhuyan, one of them, and you're maybe playing like Corrin, Billy. I do think that if you are a Corrin or Billy player, which is quite a large number of you, or even Anton player, you can consider upgrading to a physical anomaly character like Jane Doe, who can be eventually played as another category too. That's my own personal thoughts. But anyway, back to the comparison. Qingyi here, her team compositions are starting to come out. You have Seth who's appearing, you have Zhu Yuan who's appearing, and of course herself, and maybe we have like 1 or 2 more characters in the police faction. Other than that, her potential is going to be largely kept until they introduce new characters into the factions later on, but unlikely because they might want to scale out to the other different categories. For example, like Sons of Caledon, the police faction, that's where they might go next, which means that her upside might be still kept off a little bit. And if popular DPSs, for example like Miyabi, come out, the question is, will there be more like ice stun characters that are in the Lycan camp? Maybe then people will prefer that, but anyway, who knows? This is all talking about future potential. I think that in this category, Jane Doe outperforms slightly. Qingyi, definitely her potential is a little bit more capped just because of the amount of characters that's been out in the game so far. And one more category before I share with you my personal thoughts, analysis of these two characters, of my own bias of course, is free-to-play potential. Now, between the two characters, I think a DPS character, of course, is going to be a lot more expensive to run. Why? Base stats matter a lot more, and they also provide a lot of stuff in their signature gear. So free-to-play potential here is I'm just talking about them at equal investment, without any investment at all, like just their base copy, no signature of their W engines. The stun character is a lot cheaper. There are a lot of free-to-play alternatives that add impact, a lot of stuff that already add like stagger, like stun increase, days increase, very, very cheap to build. If you do not have them well invested, they just don't do as much damage, but their utility in terms of causing stun is not hindered at all. So I think stun characters very strong, especially if you're a new player into the game. This is a lot cheaper to build. Physical anomaly character like Jane is also decently cheap to build because you, as those of you who know, anomaly characters like Piper, Grace, you've been seeing in the comments all around YouTube. We also have guide videos on Piper already on the channel. Very cheap to build. You just need Anomaly Mastery, which helps you increase the rate of proccing, Anomaly Proficiency, which increases the damage that your procs do, and maybe some physical damage, energy regeneration, and stuff like that, depending on what specific characters need. Crit rate, crit damage substats does not matter as much for the anomaly characters in the early to mid game, unless this character has a split scaling, which will be very interesting to see. Then this character could scale very nicely, very nicely into the end game too, especially if this character scales off both normal, traditional attack, and anomaly. We'll wait for more information, of course, and we'll cover it on the channel. But I think between the two of them, Qingyi definitely wins this category of free-to-play potential. Jane, though, likely will benefit a bit more spendy, or people who will have liked her a little bit more to are willing to pull her W engine, but more comparisons coming up. And last but not least, I just want to share with you my personal thoughts between both of them and my honest decision. Between both of them, I think the logical choice, going with my head right now and thinking, Qingyi offers tons of value to majority of you. If I were to throw a stone at any of you viewers, not literally, but I would definitely think that Qingyi is going to benefit 90% of your accounts right now of those watching you. The 10% who might not benefit as much is a person that already has Collider, a person that already has Lycan like super well built, or maybe they don't even play with like 2 stun characters to begin with. Maybe you are playing your other team like totally anomaly kind of thing with like double anomaly with a support. In that case, I think Qingyi would not benefit 10% of your accounts, but by and large, any other 90% of you will benefit from this particular unit, especially if you are a person that wish you got lucky and got Lycan as your S rank, or Collider, because you are finding that you need a more reliable stun than Unbi. These are the people that I think should consider Qingyi very well. As for Jane though, over here, I think Jane is a character that is more adventurous, a little bit more brave. She offers higher risk and higher reward as an investment value, and given that I cannot see the runway of where this character is going to turn up, I find it very difficult to recommend to innocent people and viewers who are wanting a more safe option. In that case, without such length or clarity in terms of future how they want to position anomaly characters, for now I'll reserve my recommendation for Jane. I think that between the two of them, I personally like Jane in terms of how the game will progress. If they progress down the Jane route in terms of making characters versatile, making them fun to play, quite flexible in their things, I think Jane offers a lot more potential. But for stability's sake, for clarity right now in the investment, a lot of you probably will benefit a lot more from Qingyi. My account wise, I will pick up Qingyi definitely as a high priority. I'll pull both of them, but I think Qingyi will probably be my top pick. But I just want to say that Jane is definitely a wild card here. Risk and uncertainty is what reserves my recommendation for her currently at this state. We'll likely see more clarity towards the end of version 1.1 when 1.2 live stream comes out and the other characters are being released. But for now, these are my honest thoughts, and if you guys have any opinions you want to share with us, leave in the comment below and check out the other videos. We have one coming up for Qingyi real quick, and see you guys in the next video.